All right, let's talk about something we all do probably multiple times a day without even thinking about it: hand washing. It feels so simple, right? But what's actually happening in your sink is this incredible mix of chemistry and biology. It's pretty fascinating stuff.
And you probably think you're an expert at it by now, but what if I told you that some of the things we're absolutely convinced are true about getting our hands clean are just plain wrong? Well, that's what we're going to dig into. We're going to look at what the science really says.
So, before we can even get into how to clean our hands, we first have to understand what we're dealing with. Because, your hands are basically a bustling microscopic metropolis. Get this, on every square centimeter of your skin, there are about 10 million bacteria. Yeah, 10 million. This is what's called your skin microbiome. But hey, don't freak out. Not all of these little guys are bad news. You've really got to know the difference between these two. On one side, you have your resident microbiota. Think of them as the good guys, the locals. They live on your skin all the time and actually help protect you. Then you've got the transitory microbiota. These are the tourists, the hitchhikers you pick up from doorknobs and phones. These are the ones we're trying to get rid of when we wash our hands. So how do you kick out those unwanted hitchhikers without evicting your helpful residents? Well, the answer is in the amazing chemistry of something we all have under our sink: good old-fashioned soap. The secret sauce in soap is a molecule called the surfactant. And this molecule is kind of two-faced in the best way possible. It has a head that absolutely loves water and a tail that hates water but loves oil and grease. And this is the key thing to remember. Soap isn't a killer. It's more like a bouncer. Its whole job is to grab the germs and physically throw them out. Here's how it works. First, those oil-loving tails dive in and grab onto all the grease and germs on your hands. Then, as you scrub, and that scrubbing part is super important, the soap molecules form these little cages called micelles, trapping all the junk inside. These little cages then just float around in the water, and because their outside shell loves water, the whole thing just washes away, taking the trapped germs right down the drain with it. Gone. Okay, this brings us to the main event. The big question. Soap and water is great, but what about hand sanitizer? Which one is actually better? Let's put them head to head. So, unlike soap's bouncer strategy, hand sanitizer is all about brute force. Think of it like a chemical sledgehammer. It dissolves the outer protective layer of some germs and just messes up all their important bits, basically killing or inactivating them right there on your hands. But here's the thing. That sledgehammer doesn't work on every bad guy. Look at this chart. For some viruses, like the flu, both work great. But for really tough stuff, like non-enveloped viruses, think norovirus, sanitizer has a hard time. Soap, though, just physically lifts it and washes it away. Same for bacterial spores, like C. diff. Sanitizer does pretty much nothing. And if your hands are actually dirty or greasy, forget it. Sanitizer can't get through the grime. So there's no single winner here. It all depends on the situation. Hand sanitizer is fantastic when you're on the go and your hands are pretty clean. But if you have access to a sink, soap and water is hands down your best, most reliable defense against the widest range of germs. Which brings us to my favorite part. It's time to tackle some of the biggest myths that are out there about washing our hands. You might be surprised by some of these. Okay, this is the big one. We've all been told it, right? Use water as hot as you can possibly stand it, because that's what kills the germs. But is that actually true? The data just doesn't back it up. Not at all. Now, don't worry about the term log levels. It's just a scientific way of counting germs. A 2-log reduction is getting rid of 99% of them. And look, the difference between cold water and warm water, it's tiny, practically nothing. The thing that makes the huge difference is using soap and washing for a full 20 seconds. The temperature, it really doesn't matter. In fact, to kill most germs with heat, the water would have to be so hot it would literally burn your skin. So not only is hot water not helping, it can actually dry out your skin, causing it to crack, which can make you more likely to pick up germs. So just stick with whatever temperature is comfortable. All right, myth number 2. You see it everywhere. Antibacterial soap. It sounds like it should be better, like it's giving you an extra shield of protection. But is it? Well, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration looked into this, and their answer was a big, fat no. In 2016, they actually banned companies from putting 19 different antibacterial ingredients in soap. Why? Because the companies just couldn't show any proof that their products were any better at preventing sickness than just plain soap and water. So, yeah, save your money. So let's just put a pin in this. The most important parts of washing your hands have nothing to do with the water temperature or some fancy antibacterial label. It's all about the friction from scrubbing and, most importantly, how long you do it. That's why you always hear the 20-second rule. It really, really matters.
Now let's just zoom out for a second. The goal here isn't to completely sterilize our hands. It's all about finding a healthy balance and understanding the ecosystem we live in. This leads to something called the hygiene hypothesis. It's this theory that our immune systems actually need to be exposed to a bunch of different microbes to learn how to work properly. So the goal isn't to live in a sterile bubble. It's about targeted cleaning, washing hands at the right times, like before you eat, to get rid of specific threats. And hey, you're not done after you rinse. Drying your hands is a critical last step. And it turns out how you dry them makes a huge difference. Those powerful jet air dryers, they're like microbial wind cannons, blasting any leftover germs all over the bathroom. The most hygienic choice, according to studies, a simple paper towel. It physically wipes away moisture and germs without spraying them everywhere. So, let's boil it all down. Here's what you really need to remember. 1. Scrub with plain old soap for at least 20 seconds. Time is your friend. 2. Don't worry about hot water. Comfortable is fine. 3. Remember that soap and water is your champion for removing the biggest variety of germs. And 4. Always dry your hands completely. And if you can, use a paper towel. We've covered a ton of ground here, from the chemistry of soap to why you should be skeptical of those jet dryers. So now that you know the real science, I have a question for you. What's the one thing you're going to change the next time you step up to a sink? Think about it. Thanks for tuning in.